Before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu became president, many Nigerians made it known that the man was a chronic tax collector, that the man was pragmatic when it comes to tax collection. However, he went ahead and gave him their mandate. Few months down the line, the president has begun his move to collect tax from Nigerians. Nigerians are now saying, no, this was not how we planned it. This was not what you told us. We are facing pains. We are facing hardship. So the president is saying, no, we must collect your tax. We must collect our tax. You must pay your tax. Even Northerners are crying out to say, no, this tax reform is nowhere with us. The president is saying, no, I must collect the tax.
President Bola Tinubu's tax reform bills are still generating interest and dominating conversations in the country. Despite the prospects of this bill and the now seeming setback, the spotlight will now be on the National Assembly. But it's unclear what will be the fate of a bill that the presidency says will create efficiency and enhance productivity in Nigeria's tax administration. On the program last week, we had the chairman, Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Musa Sani Mohammed, who will play a crucial role in legislating on the proposed tax reforms bill. Here is what he had to say.
Studying it, and I believe that what is encompassed in it, it's something that Nigerians at the end of the day will appreciate, because it will reduce reliance on oil revenue. It will create avenue for us to look at other sectors of the economy like agriculture to boost our tax collection.
But on Monday, the Northern Governors Forum raised concerns about certain aspects of the bill, expressing their opposition to the new derivation-based model for value-added tax distribution and the new tax reform bills before the National Assembly. And on Thursday, the National Economic Council advised President Bola Tinubu to withdraw the bill.
So Council therefore recommend the need to withdraw the bill currently before the National Assembly on tax reforms.
But President Bola Tinubu has referred them to the National Assembly, where this bill will be deliberated and considered. He says their participation in the process will give them an opportunity to make inputs and amend this legislation. On the program today, our discussion will be from a broader economic perspective and a political angle. My guest is the Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Communication and Orientation, Mr. Sunday Dari. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Femi, for having me.
Yes, he was also a Minister of Sports and Youth Development in President Buhari's administration until that tenure expired on the 29th of May last year. Yes, let's quickly talk about these tax reform bills. We know that President Bola Tinubu has asked them to ask governors and those who are interested in maybe reforming or reworking the bill should go to the National Assembly. But how important is this bill now for economic growth and in driving President Bola Tinubu's economic agenda?
I think it's absolutely important, because when you look at the 4 bills right now at the National Assembly, and they are just bills, they're not acts yet.
Indeed.
That means there's still an opening to have conversations around the bills. Take out some things, readjust certain elements of it, and bring it back. I think it's a remarkable bill. Remarkable. And it's critical for the reforms, the larger reforms in various sectors that the president is working on. When you look at the Nigerian tax bill, the overall bill, you look at the joint tax bill, you look at that for revenue, then you look at the tax administration. Those are the 4 bills before the National Assembly. The president's preference is to have a de jure approach to it, not a de facto. Because if you do it outside of the legislature, then you must have contravened Nigeria's constitution. So, being a president that understands the law and the constitution says it's already there. Let's have the representatives of the people from across the country, 360 plus. Let them deliberate on it. What also happens? people, the governors, Nigerians can send in whatever comments they have, whatever deviations they have, and then that can be processed. And I think that is the best way. The president has not said, oh, the tax bill will be withdrawn. He says, let it go through that process. And I think that's the way to go, the jury way, according to the Constitution.
Yeah, some people have said it's a very clever way to wriggle out of...
No, but let me also know that I think it's the right way to go, because any other path will bring crisis. That's one. Two, when you look at the tax very well, you mentioned about, bringing about justice and fairness, about, efficiency in tax administration. It also targets posterity, not poverty. Look at the revenue tax, for instance. You can keep 100% of the taxes within your domain. You understand? That brings about control of your taxes, but also a level of responsibility at the level of the state. So when you look at it, I can reel out several features of that tax. I think what's important is that everyone should work with the experts you have, even at the level of state governors, and go through, because, like I said, it's a remarkable document, and Nigeria has arrived at a junction that you must look at its taxes. When you look at several other countries, they have tax reforms. America, for instance, never, on a continuous basis, that happens. I think we're at that point now, and we must all hunker down and support Mr. President in this process.
Yeah, before these tax reform bills, Nigerians have also been complaining now. And how are you explaining to Nigerians who say that when this administration assumed office at the end of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, a litre of petrol was around 210 naira, the dollar was around, official price was around 439 naira, and then in the black market was 720 naira. The reality today is different, which is a great departure from where the previous administration left it. And everyone had thought that, in that sense of continuity, that they would see maybe an improvement on President Muhammadu Buhari's policies.
Well, governance is not static. Beyond the price of oil or PMS, several other commodities have marked up in price. But let me back up to the departure of the last administration and the entrance of the new administration. They talk about PMS, about subsidy, has been on for over a decade.
Indeed.
Recall. And every time, every government had found a way to sidestep it. Deep down, Nigerians knew it will come to that day of judgment, that a leader will emerge and eventually take that decision. So a leader emerges. Even the previous administration that left actually did not put subsidy money beyond June. So the facts are there. It's good to really face the facts. Another fact we must face, $600 million every month, 7.5 billion in a year. Massive pressure on our forex. The country has been bleeding through subsidy, and something had to be done. When you look at other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, who had similar, particularly Indonesia, they removed their own subsidy in phases, but they still had to mark it up, both for PMS and diesel. They brought about safety, social safety programs just like we have, which I'm going to reel off much later, NELFON, Credit Com, and all of that. Eventually what happened, between 2015 and 2020 or 2021, they moved from crisis to stability. Indonesia moved from crisis to stability. They made necessary adjustment, sacrifice on the part of government, understanding and sacrifice on the part of the people. As we speak now, the World Bank has predicted that between 2024 and 2025, Indonesia will have a GDP of 5.1 to 5.4. And I think when you look at that, and you see Nigeria's similar situation, we're in that pot. The times are difficult because tough decisions have to be taken. And of course, there are challenges. Yeah. But you have a president who it did not stop at just removing the subsidy. He went ahead to roll out programs to provide options for Nigerians. And I think that's important.
Yeah, everyone agrees that this whole fuel subsidy regime was a scam. Even those that campaigned alongside President Bola.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they all said
presidential candidates.
Yes, they all said they were going to remove the subsidy. They all condemned the whole subsidy regime. And Nigerians also agree with that. But now that it has been removed, it appears as if it's also taking more money out of the pocket of poor Nigerians. And people are beginning to ask, can't it be reorganized in a way, or reinvented in a way that there will be proper accountability, and then reduce this whole hardship Nigerians are going through?
Who says there's no accountability?
No, but subsidy has been removed, but it can be returned in a more accountable way.
Well, first, FARC has increased twice. FARC is shared by the federal government to the state government. The federal government takes its own. The state governments take double, almost triple of what, almost 57% increase. That is significant. Such monies are to go back to the state governments for them to take care of the people. You see, there's a tendency to pile all the blame on the federal government, on the center, on President Tinubu. But read our constitution. These resources are shared every month. Where do they go to? What do they apply them to? The president cannot dictate, but the president has given a general direction for this country in terms of reforms, in terms of the 8-point agenda he has for the country. The governors plug in, and they must invest these resources to help the people. I think that's the direction we need to go, and it's very important.
Yeah, but you know, some of even President Bola Tinubu's worst critics, you know, they all acknowledge that, you know, he's that man that can take bold decisions. He has that courage to make bold decisions. Could it be that Nigerians were not ready for such a leader, or is it that, you know, these bold economic reforms are not just working the way they expect it to?
Well, I think it's more of Nigerians not ready. It's a shock therapy to say, look, well, let us face reality. I tell you, President Bola Tinubu is a man that loves data. He loves data. So before he makes a decision, he will have churned out and fed himself with data, look at all the options before moving forward. And I think that Nigeria has come to a time in which we must confront the reality of our time. The resources and revenue to government is going down. Our population is increasing. We have a lot of leakages in our system. And like I said, it must come to a time when you will need a leader to emerge. You see, we can continue to apply Band-Aid. This president says, no, we're not apply Band-Aid no more. Let me give you Lee Kuan Yew, 1953 to 1990. His story is well told. But when he came in, he took 3 major decisions that became extremely contentious. Yet he stood his ground all through, working with the people, explaining, but also making sure that increasingly there were improvements in the quality of life. First, he said, let's have English language as the unifier language. It was attacked all through. Second, he said, pay civil servants, public servants, massive salaries. Very important. The third thing he did was to ask that they bring the best people, experts, anywhere around the world. Best experts in energy, best experts in power, best experts in education, to build the backbone infrastructure needed for Singapore's development. Those 3 decisions were so contentious, but he stayed the course. This president will stay the course because he has seen the data and he knows that what Nigeria needs now is fixing. And I'm sure Nigerians will come to terms with this development, and in no distant future, we'll start to see the impact. Already we're seeing it. You look at the CNG, for instance, it's an option. You look at NELFON, extremely successful. You look at Credit Corp, as it is. More than 11,000 civil servants have gotten their money. The lowest interest rate you can ever get, 4%. So this president is at work for this country. This president deals with statistics and data, but also understands that to some extent there are certain decisions that have to be taken now. If not, this country will have to suffer for it.
But does he have a team that understands his vision? Because people are also asking about the decision-making processes.
It does.
And even the expected outcomes
and a good example,
probably reflective of
and a good example is the tax reform bills, like I said. It's a remarkable document. I'm not a financial expert, but I had to really sit down and go through. I also spoke to some experts, and I saw clearly the work that went into it. A president that understands that the re-engineering of the tax regime of this country and the finances of this country at both the federal and the state level is critical. and he needed to fix it. That's one. Two, most of the programs rolled out have expected outcomes. They have targets. You understand? Look at NEL Fund, for instance, almost 80 billion disbursed. It's covered over 100 or 115 universities. It's progressing as planned. That's one. CNG, 1 million kids to be distributed free. About 2,000 tricycles to young people. The centers we have for conversion, last year were just 7. Right now we have 125. $175 million invested by the private sector. That shows they believe in the CNG revolution.
But
the federal government, 75 million.
For the CNG, some people have said the progress achieved so far is still like a drop of water in an ocean because more than 80% of Nigerians
let me tell you why, and that's going to change in the next few months. It's because the infrastructure needed is being put together. It's a gradual process. No country transits from PMS in 5 months or even 1 year. A country like ours, you know the number of cars we have on the road? So a little more patience, and we're going to see that infrastructure comes up. I know that CNG is saying before the end of this year, they're going to triple the number of conversion centers. The 1 million conversion kits comes in a few weeks, and it's going to go around. And I think that this is a government that has kept faith with the programs and policies and the reforms it has brought on. But also it's important to know that these transitions, these changes need time. Changes do not occur overnight. It can be different for this country. And that's the message we need to put out clearly.
How much more time? Nigerians have waited for more than a year now. How much more time?
You know, when you read some of the greatest books on economics and development, you find out that the average gestation period for any policy, depending on the size of the policy, is between 2 to 5 years. There are no shortcuts. No shortcuts. And I think that if this is not a president that wants to take shortcuts, because he has a choice to take shortcuts, wait for 4 years, go another 4 years, and 8 years go by, and then leaves this country. Every president comes in, inherits certain liabilities and also assets. And he has a responsibility. On his way out, he must bequeath a legacy. This president cares about his legacy, but also cares less about the applause. Because if you listen to the applause, if he listens to the applause alone, if he's somebody that just wants to be popular for the sake of it, he will reverse all these reforms. And then what happens? That's like digging the hole. When you're in a hole, you're digging deeper. Now he has provided several rafts through the reforms we're having. Look at the oil industry, for instance. Now we have Naira for crude oil. We have the Dangote refinery. The modular refineries are producing. In a short while, we're going to have at least 50% to 70% local refining. That's progress. When this happens, that's what happens in Indonesia. By the time they move from 25% local petroleum refining to about 60%, the price of oil came down. Don't forget, the PMS is benchmarked in dollars. Right now, we're having local refinery, reducing almost to less than 10% or whatever importation that will come in. So it's all Naira-based. That's a decision he has taken. That must be applauded, to say, sell to Dangote or any other refinery. That's one. Two, there are plans by government to also privatize quickly. And you know, several governments have started it. They stop with turnaround maintenance if you're not complete, back and forth. Here is a president who says, it is time to privatize our 4 refineries. And then they will join with the Dangote refinery. And then that will increase our local production. And that will beat down the price eventually.
But how informed, what kind of feedback does the president get? How informed is he about the realities outside there, the realities on the streets, what Nigerians face on a daily basis? Does he get accurate feedback?
The president gets accurate information. Because let me tell you how you can draw the line. When you see the policies that are churned out, when you see the approvals that he gives, it makes you understand that he actually understands what is happening in the country. Let me take the youth of our nation, for instance. Recognizes the fact that we have a restless youth population. The unemployment among the youth is quite high. They need to have inclusivity in government, What did he do? First, he announced on October 1st, the National Youth Conference for 30 days. That's huge. That eventually, if it takes place, we're going to have the benefit from our youth about what they think is important. 2, he increased the youth NYIF, Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, which is meant to create wealth, to turn our youth to wealth creators, 210 billion. That's critical. Then he brought on the large part of our youth, huge population, 92 million, counting 120 million, brought NEL Fund. No administration has ever, when bursary disappeared completely, there was no solution. NEL Fund is right there, 126 universities benefiting, almost 80 billion disbursed, and that will go year on year, giving people the benefit to get the education. He always says, Mr. President always says, the greatest weapon against poverty is education. And any country that does not educate its people, particularly its youth, no matter the policies you put in place, it will be impossible to achieve the development and the growth that you require.
Yeah, well, there's also, why I asked how informed or aware is the president of the situation in the country, because there's this general belief that there is a group of people, some people say a cabal in the presidency, that influences his decisions and probably controls things, pull the levers of power.
Yeah, I think we've become so comfortable with the idea of the cabal. And you must understand how the idea of the cabal, the people they call the cabal, are the people that are holding the key sectors of the economy. These are people who are advisors, who must advise the president on trends, who must put critical data in front of him. And they have access to him. How does access turn you into a member of the cabal? If you're doing your job. The Minister of Finance, for instance, must see him on a constant basis to show him all the indicators so that they can see it. They must have constant meters. So what is happening? This idea of a cabal as a negative connotation that we kind of entrench, I think that notion should change, because any government, you will have 5, 6, 7 people who are holding key positions and who must brief the president on a constant basis. That access is what people think, makes them a cabal.
But does the box still stop on his table? Is he in charge?
The president is 100% in charge. He's always been from day one. And he has shown it. When the CBN tax came up, the tax that was announced by the CBN.
For cyber security.
Yes, for cyber tax came up.
Yeah.
The president cancelled it because he dealt with what the facts are. That's one. The tax reform bill we're talking about, he was briefed on a constant basis, all through. Being a chartered accountant that he is, with his vast experience, he saw that there's a future for our country in this tax reform bill. And I think what the president is urging both the governors and Nigerians to say, let the legislative process take place. 360 representatives of the people. The bill is before them. Give them the opportunity, as it is in our constitution, to go through this. They're just bills, 4 bills. Not an act yet. They're not lawyered. So whatever changes, whatever adjustment that needs to be made will be made. It will come back to the presidency or the president. He will look at it with his advisors and ministers, and then it will go back. But I want to assure that I know the president will work with our governors. He's working, in fact, working with our governors, but he's saying, let us go the legislative way.
So you're saying those accusing the administration of exclusion and shutting that door to open door policy President Bola Tinubu promised to practice are not fair?
Absolutely. You see, this is a president that is communicative. This president places premium on communication, and I can say that with about 30 years of journalistic experience. You can't write the story of the media development in this country in this critical time under military dictatorship without talking about President Bola Tinubu, who invested not only in the media, but invested in a lot of journalists, supporting the media when the media was totally on its knees. Guardian was shut down, the news was shut down, Tel was shut down. We had to float at the AM newspapers. He funded it. The story is long. Now, he's the man who places premium on communication. And when you have that communication between the president and the people, you don't talk about closed door. You talk about open government. And I think that will increase As we go along, as these reforms start to impact, we will show data to show the impact in a progressive way. We will show when milestones are met. And I think that's what we require of this president, to show us increasing changes under the reforms that he has brought to bear on our country.
Well, Nigerians were shocked, to see those end bad governance protesters brought to court the other day. We have seen the statement from the Attorney General of the Federation.
Absolutely.
And everyone is looking for the government's next line of action, we hope by tomorrow or so. But what should Nigerians expect, and how was this even allowed to happen?
Well, absolutely. The law must take its course. When you run a country without the enforcement of laws, without the rule of law, its respect for it, you run into serious crisis. You saw the response of the presidency by asking the AGF to take the files to review, and that went into the weekend. I know that has happened on Saturday. That review is ongoing. Mr. President will be briefed accordingly. So let's wait. But don't forget, we should not forget. When the end bad government protesters started, we were all in our living room, streaming on our television sets. We were appalled and shocked by the violence that trailed it. How can we forget so soon, in 2-3 months, what happened in Kano and other parts of the country? A whole building of NCC torn down and destroyed. People carrying refrigerators and stuff across the place, destroying vehicles. Is that the kind of country we want? There must be some level of repercussion, some level of punishment for those that want to turn the country into a chaotic country. And that's what's happening. And I think there are quite 97 of them. I think we should just wait, let the law take its course. The president has stepped in. He believes in his attorney general. The police have been alerted. They will also play their role. And I think this will be resolved eventually. Right,
and we're out of time. We must go. But before we leave in 30 seconds, what should Nigerians expect in the nearest future, not the long term now?
Well, the nearest future can be 4 months, can be 6 months, can be 1 year in the life of a government. But first, let me make this point, which I've made repeatedly. This president has a 4-year term. We're just making 18 months. He came in, met quite a number of challenges, and decided, rather than just pretend they're not there, decided to deal with them. Now, we must give this president time. And like I said, some of these policies are already being impactful. We're seeing outcomes from these policies. And I think that as progressively as we go on, we will see these reforms taking shape. Look at the oil industry reform, apart from the PMS price. Now, market forces, like we have in other countries, now determine our oil prices. We see the president engaging almost every fortnight with Dangote, the NNPCL, just to make sure that eventually we get to an equilibrium. Constantly at work to find solutions to our problem. And I think that's what's important. You have a president who is constantly at work to find solutions to this country's problem, but also leveraging on the expertise and the data available in this country comparatively to other countries to take these tough decisions that can get us out of the headwinds as a country.
All right, I must thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Mr. Sunday Darius, President Bola Tinubu's Special Advisor on Communication and Orientation.
This is currently ongoing. However, an aide of the president has noted that, look, the president is considering all Nigerians in his tax reforms. He's considering and putting into consideration the plight of the Nigerian people in his tax reforms. Ali Undume, in the same vein, is saying that the president should tax those who have the capacity to pay tax and not to spread tax across the nation as a thing of necessity. Ali Ndume is arguing that the president should consider the common man, that he should cease to inflict pain on the common man. It is no longer news that Nigerians are undergoing hardship. It is no longer news also that Nigerians are currently undergoing shaggy in the hands of this administration, going by the malnourished policies and programs of this administration. Recall that things were not this way under Buhari. Hence, many Nigerians have claimed that they are seriously missing Buhari as their president. Should we not beg Buhari to come back? No, we are not begging him. Stand on the mandate you helped to bring aboard.